Two friends were finishing their dinner. From the cafe windows, they saw the boulevard filled with people. They felt the soft winds that come to Paris on warm summer evenings, making you want to go outside, not caring where, under the trees, and making you dream of moonlit rivers, fireflies, and larks. One friend, Henri Simon, sighed deeply and said, "Oh, I am getting old. It's sad. In the past, on evenings like this, I felt full of life. Now, I only feel regrets. Life is short." Henri was maybe 45 years old, very bald, and getting a bit stout. The other friend, Pierre Carnier, a bit older but thin and lively, replied, "Well, my friend, I have grown old without realizing it at all. I have always been cheerful, healthy, strong, and so on. Since we see ourselves in the mirror every day, we don't notice the changes that come with age. It's slow, steady, and it makes our face change so gently that we don't see it. That's why we don't die of sadness after a few years of excitement. We can't understand the changes that time brings. To see them, we'd have to go without looking at our own face for 6 months. Then, oh, what a surprise. In women, my friend, how I feel sorry for them. All their happiness, power, and life depend on their beauty, which only lasts 10 years. Like I said, I got older without realizing it. I thought I was still pretty young when I was almost 50 years old. Feeling perfectly healthy, I went around happily and peacefully. The moment I understood I was getting old hit me in a simple and tough way. It made me feel down for about 6 months, and then I accepted it. Like everyone else, I've been in love many times, but there was one time that stood out. I met her at the seashore in Etretat, about 12 years ago, shortly after the war. The beach is lovely during the morning bathing time. It's small, shaped like a horseshoe, with tall white cliffs, and 2 holes in the cliffs called ports. One stretches out into the ocean like a giant's leg, and the other is short and stout. Women gather on the narrow strip of sand between these high rocks, creating a beautiful garden with their gorgeous dresses. The sun shines on the shores, colorful umbrellas, and the blue-green sea, making everything happy and delightful. Sitting at the water's edge, you watch the bathers. Women come down in long ropes, which they take off delicately when they reach the foamy edge of the waves. They run into the water with quick steps, pausing now and then for a delightful shiver from the cold water, a quick gasp. Very few look good after the swim. That's when you can judge them, from the ankles to the throat. Leaving the water especially reveals any flaws, even though water helps with saggy skin. The first time I saw this young woman in the water, I was happy, enchanted. She looked good after the swim. Some faces instantly charm you and make you happy at first glance. You feel like you've found the person you were meant to love. I had that feeling in shock. I met her and fell in love more than ever before. I longed for her, and it's both terrible and delightful to be under the spell of a young woman. It's like torture, yet it brings infinite joy. Her look, smile, windblown hair, the small lines on her face, every little move she made delighted, disturbed, and enchanted me. She captured me completely, mind and body, with her gestures, manners, and even her clothes, which seemed to have a special charm when she wore them. I felt tender seeing her veil on furniture or her gloves on a chair. Her dresses seemed unmatched, and no one had hats like hers. She was married, but her husband only visited on Saturdays and left on Mondays. I didn't bother about him. I wasn't jealous, don't know why. He seemed less important than anyone else to me. But her, how I loved her. She was so beautiful, graceful, and young. She embodied youth, elegance, and freshness. I had never felt so strongly the charm of a woman, pretty, distinguished, delicate, charming, and graceful. I had never appreciated the alluring beauty in the curve of a cheek, the movement of a lip, the pinkness of an ear, or the shape of that funny thing called the nose. This love lasted 3 months. Then I went to America, overwhelmed with sadness. But her memory stayed with me, persistent and triumphant. Even from a distance, I felt as much hers as when she was near. Years passed, but I didn't forget her. The lovely image of her was always in my eyes and heart. My love remained true, a quiet tenderness now, like the cherished memory of the most beautiful and enchanting thing I had ever encountered. 12 years aren't much in a lifetime. You don't feel them passing. The years go by gently and quickly, slowly but rapidly. Each one seems long but is over too soon. They add up fast, leave few marks, disappear completely. When you look back at the years, you see nothing, yet you don't understand how you became so old. It felt like only a few months separated me from that charming time on the sands of Etretat. Last spring, I went to have dinner with friends at Maisons Lafite. As the train started moving, a big, plump lady with 4 little girls joined my car. I barely noticed this motherly figure, large and round, her face as full as the moon under a huge hat with many ribbons. She was panting, out of breath from walking quickly. The children began to chat. I opened my newspaper and began to read. After passing Asnières, my neighbor suddenly spoke to me. "Excuse me, sir, but are you not Mr. Garnier?" "Yes, ma'am." Then she started laughing, a happy laugh, yet a bit sad. "You don't seem to recognize me." I hesitated. I felt like I'd seen that face before, but where? When? I replied, "Yes and no. I certainly know you, yet I can't recall your name." She blushed a bit. "Mrs. Julie Lefebvre." I'd never been so surprised. In a moment, it felt like everything was ending for me. I sensed a veil had been lifted from my eyes, and I was about to make a terrible and heartbreaking discovery. So this was her, that big, plump, ordinary woman, she. Since I last saw her, she had become the mother of these 4 girls. And these little ones amazed me as much as their mother. They were like her. They were big girls already, with a place in life. Meanwhile, she seemed to matter less, this marvel of delicate and charming grace. It felt like I had seen her just yesterday, and this is how I found her again. Could it be? A deep sadness gripped my heart, and also a rebellion against nature itself, an irrational anger against this harsh and unjust act of destruction. I stared at her, confused. Then I held her hand, and tears filled my eyes. I cried for her lost youth, because I didn't recognize this chubby lady. She was also excited and said with hesitation, "I've changed a lot, haven't I? But that's how it goes. Everything has its time. You see, I've become a mother, just a good mother. Farewell to the rest, that's over. Oh, I never thought you'd recognize me if we met. You've changed too. It took me a while to be sure I wasn't wrong. Your hair is all white. Imagine that. 12 years ago. 12 years. My oldest girl is already 10. I looked at the child. I saw some of her mother's old charm, but something not yet fully developed, something promising for the future. Life felt as fast as a passing train. We had arrived at Maisons Lafite. I kissed my old friend's hand. I could only manage simple words. I was too disturbed to talk. At night, alone at home, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, a very long time. and I finally remembered what I used to be, envisioning my brown mustache, black hair, and youthful face in my mind. Now, I was old. Farewell.